Hey guys, welcome back to the Friday Vlog, where we talk about activity going on with the channel, current events, headlines in the news, pop culture, technology, and items of interest that come up during the week. I want to thank all you guys for your participation here, especially from all those that have been long-time subscribers. It's great hearing from you guys. I appreciate all the support you guys give me. If this is your first time to the channel, I encourage you guys to click on that watermark in the bottom right-hand corner so you guys will continue to get the vlogs each week. So we're starting it off with the March for Our Lives that took place over the weekend in Washington, D.C. And of course, this was supposed to have been kind of a grassroots organic event put together by the Parkland teens there to raise awareness for gun violence. Now, I can totally appreciate that these individuals were putting this all together, but the reality was that this was more of a corporate media event because the backers, when you trace the money, is going to go to the Democratic Party, special interest, individuals within certain groups or special interest, as it were, and then what they call outside sources. Now, outside sources can mean from other states, it can mean from other countries, but in code, it really means individuals like George Soros. Now, you can see that this was incredibly contrived and very well orchestrated. You can see here in the video I'm showing of Jack Posobiec, who was there, filming lines upon lines of buses that went about a block and a half to put this all together. And what they ended up doing too is they ended up shuffling all the people into Pennsylvania Avenue so that they could take these nice sweeping shots. Now, as a producer, as a person who puts together content, I can appreciate the nice shots, the sweeps, the drone shots, and all the activity that was going on to present this story, this narrative, which was to draw emotion and attention. Now, I'm not trying to detract from the fact that individuals did suffer from the gun violence that happened in Parkland, Florida, so by no means am I trying to dismiss that in any way. I'm simply saying that we can see that there's an active, functional group of individuals who are trying to go after the Second Amendment, maybe in a way that they think is going to help the situation versus bring attention to how our Second Amendment actually works and what the rights are that it provides. What we saw was more adults than students, which comes as no surprise. Some of these splinter groups actually broke off and went over to the Trump Hotel. Now, for me, as I mentioned, the production value, it seems like it's ripping from the pages of Saul Alinsky and Edward Bernays, because this was very well put together. I mean, we had celebrities, we had guest speakers, so there's no doubt that a great deal of planning went into it, which is a good thing that this was planned very well. However, the thing that really concerns me is maybe the layperson seeing this may not realize that there's really more of a sales pitch involved here than really trying to convey a message. Along with the organization, we saw that perhaps the president allowed for the Capitol Police to be present there as well, because there was a very high security presence, which isn't any surprise considering that you also had celebrities and guest speakers. And the idea here was just to ensure safety at all the different various levels, so you didn't want particular groups clashing with one another. Now, Posobiec, who did follow some of the groups that were there, there's always going to be counter protesters at these events, because I've attended rallies myself for the Second Amendment and for our gun rights, and there will be some counter protesting there, but usually they keep it pretty calm. And from what I could tell, it really was kind of more of a tame event. And but I wonder if they shouldn't have also put out a bunch of constables, because if you may remember the Women's March, the amount of litter and trash and signage, I mean, all the signage they had, it looked, well, maybe not every single one, but a good deal of the signage was just dumped there on the ground. So it would have been interesting if the president had maybe dispatched some constables there to start writing people up for littering. So now we're just going to kind of see how that message was delivered, because you can always tell how, when the mainstream media is trying to present a particular narrative, that they're actually not doing that good of a job. And the way to tell is that they disable their comment sections. If you guys remember, when you read articles, normally at the bottom they'll have comment sections. Now, the thing is that, as I've mentioned to you before, the mainstream media has always perceived itself as a fourth branch of government. They believe that they are the ones who influence society, that without them, society couldn't function, because you have to get your information from them to know what your marching orders are. So at the bottom of each of those columns, you'll see that many of the articles have now disabled comments. So that goes to show you that the mainstream media is not always getting what they want. But they did put on quite an event this weekend. Also dominating the headlines this week, Mark Zuckerberg has landed himself in some hot water. Now, you may recall the Cambridge Analytica story from last week, where these individuals were data mining and harvesting information from Facebook. Well, now the British Parliament is asking either Zuckerberg or individuals or an individual from his executive leadership or shot callers to come over and answer for the activity that took place in their country on their internet. Now, I don't expect Zuckerberg to go there because this is probably just an entrapment procedure, which is very much what they're trying to get Trump to do, to go and testify at the Department of Justice, because it's not very difficult to entrap someone. You can always find something like an overdue library book from 21 years ago, or a video you didn't rewind from Blockbuster back, 18, 20 years ago as well. So the idea here of him actually going to the British Parliament is kind of comical, because Zuckerberg, being a registered Democrat, is not getting a lot of support from his fellow Democrats and from his liberal organization as well. And I don't really find it amusing at the suffering of individuals, but he did this to himself, because let me tell you what this actually entailed. The whole premise of this, the whole reason that you even know about Cambridge Analytica is because the media was trying to use it as leverage against the Trump campaign. So as you see, or as you have noticed throughout these last year and a half or so, as individuals go after Trump, they end up implicating themselves, which is something you would think they would learn from their mistakes. And this is why I ask you guys to pay very close attention to news stories and things that you see, because there's always some underlying ulterior motive behind some of these stories that are supposed to make Trump look bad. This ended up making Zuckerberg look terrible. His stocks are tanking. Facebook is being hit by these delete Facebook, Twitter that was trending, right? These hashtags were trending across Twitter this whole week. So obviously he had to make a response, and at first he didn't want to respond. We've also heard that his staff is always concerned when he speaks, because Zuckerberg can be a little bit awkward. He is kind of a very introverted person. He's just an individual that just isn't very functional within the limelight of activity that's going on. So they're also very concerned when he has to go and do public engagements and public speaking. Okay, guys, those were the two main topics that I really wanted to discuss for this week. And for all you baseball fans, March 29th was opening day, so I'm sure you guys are probably pretty excited about that. Guys, I want to thank you for your support, your shares, your likes, and your comments. If you haven't already, guys, make sure that you are following me on social media, and make sure you click on that watermark down there in that bottom right-hand corner to subscribe. And I will see you guys next Friday.